and welcome to the UK and Europe edition of the Top 100 LinkedIn Live panel discussions. My name is Rosalind Johnston and I have the pleasure of hosting today's discussion. Thank you for joining us. Over the next 45 minutes, I will be sitting down with 6 of our top 100 members who were recently featured in Corinium's Top 100 Innovators in Data and Analytics 2022. If you haven't yet seen who else is featured, you can download your copy of the report right now. It's within the event description. So now on to the discussion at hand. I would like to start by introducing my esteemed panel. First up, we have Harvinder Atwell, Chief Data Scientist at Money Supermarket Group. Next, we have Jean Perez, the Director of Data and Analytics at Collinson Value Dynamics. Next, we have Ross Simpson, Global Chief Data Officer at CDP. Here we have Samir Rahman, CEO and Founder at Data Money. We also have Sarah Gadd, Global Head of Data and Artificial Intelligence Solutions at Credit Suisse. And last but certainly not least, we've got Thierry Grimer, Group Chief Data Analytics Officer at NG. So welcome everyone, and thank you all for joining the discussion today. I'd love to kick off by asking each of you to give us a little bit of background information about yourself. So I'll start with you, Harvinder. What was your journey into your senior data role? Have you always been in the data space?
Hi, Rosalind. Thanks for inviting me to this panel. Yeah, happy to share my journey. So I've always actually worked with data and algorithms. So I've been doing it now for 26 years. I've always been fascinated with how we could use data for sort of commercial outcomes and benefits. So I started off in operational research. So that's what I did my master's in. So for those of you not familiar, it's sometimes called operations research. Outside the UK, it's a branch of mathematics that deals with sort of optimization algorithms. So if you've ever come across queuing theory or shortest path algorithms, that's all part of the maths of operational research. So at the beginning of my career, actually, there really wasn't much of a job market, believe it or not. Data was not a sort of big, cool space that it is now. So I did a few sort of stints in various companies, including one at British Airways, where I was working on a kind of wide variety of problems, from coming up with fuel hedging strategies, developing models to decide what aircraft to buy, simulating terminals, and so on. Really fascinating work. From there, I kind of went into banking. So banking, transport, government, they were the sort of big users of data and algorithms prior to the big data and digitalization world that we live in today. And that was really my first experience of sort of data-driven product development, data-driven marketing. And Lloyd's at the time had invested way ahead of many other organizations in its capability. From there, I moved to dunnhumby. So they were really the kind of pioneers of using sort of data at scale. And I was inside director there, using a very different kind of data to what I've been used to, sort of transactional basket data to drive loyalty to Tesco and help their customers save money and get the best possible deal. And then from there, I moved to Money Supermarket, where I've been for just over 9 years now, doing a variety of roles, sort of starting off in customer insight type roles and marketing optimization, and then sort of progressively kind of branching out and helping the organization and its customers in different ways. So kind of ended up doing a role which kind of encompassed the whole data lifecycle. So, looking after the data platforms, data engineering, as well as data science, product analytics, and BI. So spanning the whole spectrum of use of data. And more recently, I've been also responsible for performance media. So for those of you not familiar with performance media, that's sort of Google Ads, advertising on search, and social and other digital marketing media, which is increasingly driven by data these days. So, during that journey, I've picked up a lot of experience, and so I do kind of try and share that as much as possible. So I'm kind of active on the data scene. I like to help other people on their career journey. So hopefully I can share some more tips as we go along.
Fantastic, thank you very much. And Jean, what's your background been?
Thank you, Rosalind. And yeah, again, really pleased to be here together with all these great panel members. So yeah, a bit about myself. So I'm actually from Bolivia in South America. So where I come from, I guess data, even nowadays, it is nowhere near to where we are in the UK or in the US. So from if I look back, many years now, but by the time when I was in uni or finishing uni, I did financial engineering, which was more around it's a bit of like finance, but at the same time, quite heavily oriented on doing analytics on economic models. The type of work you will normally associate with like a public economy or something like that in the UK or in Europe. So yeah, from there, I guess my journey was slightly different. So because of how things were naturally in South America, I started working in insurance. As an industry, I did a bit of underwriting, looking at underwriting and actuarial models that were more naturally aligned to my degree. And then got a bit of visibility, I guess, of all of the different variations and flavors of insurance. So doing a bit of commercial insurance, property, personal lines, car, motor, home, etc. Everything that was in between, really a bit of a mix. And then after a little while, I did a master's degree in Spain, and in Spain I did study quite a lot more on e-commerce and the interaction between e-commerce, data, and financial institutions. So how can it all be linked together? Whilst I was doing that in Spain, there were several opportunities that come about. So I ended up moving to New Zealand. So I've been traveling a while. So working in New Zealand as well. There did a bit with a health insurer there, and quite interesting actually the line of work, because mainly my role there was a senior modeler. I was in charge of all high value claims or high value conditions that would be normally cancer care, oncology, and so it was a mix of looking at predicting the likelihood of each of these different conditions to be presented in our membership, in all of the people that were insured. But at the same time, because cancer care and oncology continues to evolve, there was a heavy element of it of evaluating new technologies. So and as you can expect, new technologies, new treatment, new medication, there is only clinical trial information, clinical trial data. Is trying to evaluate that and sort of interlink that data to your membership, knowing their conditions, what medication they take, and pretty much all of the data you have, and trying to find the right balance, right, of which new technologies, which new medications and treatments we were likely to approve. And then we will normally work with what would be the NHS equivalent there, to trying to come together and form a roadmap of when the next step of when is the right time for a treatment to be approved, and depending on what is the likelihood of effectiveness, I guess, of the treatment to the population. So that was I think quite rewarding from a way, because it was a way of utilizing, I guess, my skills and some of the studying and learning that you do, but actually for a good cause, because at the end of the day, you do have that great feeling that you made someone's life better or potentially extend someone's life. So it's really good. So did a bit of that. Did quite a bit of pricing. So I have quite a bit of pricing experience, looking at price optimization, campaign management within that. Work with different algorithms of price optimization. Work with earnings. In the motor and car insurance, motor insurance, and home insurance space as well here in the UK. And then most recently, when I moved to Collinson, I've been pretty much looking after the whole spectrum, really, from how data is ingested to us, that being from our partners, websites, products, our own. So all of the engineering pipeline, the architecture, the governance, the data management, lineage, etc. And then once that data has been transformed and curated, how can you get the max value out of it? And that will be in the two avenues, right? So via data science projects and algorithms, and the other one providing insight reporting and dashboarding, self-service to the business. So that's sort of what it's been my journey, a bit of everything here and there, but it's quite, I think, valuable. Because I feel that everything that you learn across the way, it always comes useful at some point, even if it's completely different industry. You get some learning from the experience that you have gathered. Yeah,
absolutely, really varied. It must have been really fascinating. Thank you. Ross, with your beautiful background that I'm very envious of, tell us a bit about your journey.
Sure. So I started off in sales and marketing. So from university doing a geography degree, joined Procter & Gamble, then to Energizer, and then I moved into consultancy working for Accenture. After that period, I then, a bit like Harvinder, fell into the loyalty market a little bit. So a company called NCH Marketing, where we captured all of the paper out of all the supermarkets around the UK, but we also ran loyalty schemes for the likes of Do It All and Toys R Us and others as well. So that's really where I started to understand data for the first time. Then got into a number of transformations, whether it was at telecoms and BT, we did customer insight at Birmingham City Council, and then did a lot of transformations around data for regulated industries. So for the likes of British Gas, Npower, Severn Trent Water, did some work at Sainsbury's on GDPR, and then also helped at the Ordnance Survey to help set up the Chief Data Office there. So previous role to where I am now, I was head of data at Thames Water, where we built a team from 2 to 100 people in about a year, which was interesting and fascinating, right the way across from data to products to building the data engineering to trying to predict where a pipe was going to leak next. Brings me then to my current role as Global Chief Data Officer for CDP. Fundamentally, we've been going for 20 years. Vision is we want to see a thriving economy that works for people and planet in the long term. What we do is we focus investors, companies, and cities on taking action to really build a truly sustainable economy. And we do that through getting them to disclose. We have about 50,000 companies that disclose on climate, on water and forest, and we're trying to make it a sustainable future for us and everybody else on the planet. So very green and very topical at the moment.
Fantastic, thank you. Fighting the good fight, definitely. Samir, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, so Ross, that's why your background is green, I guess. But yeah, quite a bit of common between what Ross, Harvinder, and Jean has talked about, Rosalind. So my first degree was in computer science engineering, and and after that I started doing my master's in business, purely because both of those degrees were a fashion when I was growing up. But I didn't understand how they came together. I only understood that when I was working on my dissertation with dunnhumby on the Tesco club card, and how the Tesco phenomenon or the dunnhumby phenomenon completely changed the operating model of such a behemoth, which was Tesco at the time. So I said, yeah, okay, now I understand. The penny has dropped for me. Now I understand how data can become a business advantage rather than just an entity in itself. So moved on from there. My jobs were all around from raising. First one was HMRC, and then the big heavy data job came in Lloyd's TSB, where I was in charge of a team developing the credit risk scorecards. After that, I moved into HBOS, various jobs. Again, the other synergy between what Jean and Harvinder has talked about is I headed up the data science function within Go Compare. So that was fascinating with lots of data. And then I became a consultant across US and UK-based companies, essentially providing chief data officer services and also non-executive services. I'll talk about later. I think non-executive with a data specialism is very much required in this world, which is not heavily talked about. But anyway, and then I moved into the Royal Mint, which was again manufacturer. Again, somebody talked about water leakage. I think it was Ross. We did predictive maintenance on machines who develop currencies. So you don't want to be out of pocket. The whole country doesn't want to be out of pocket. So we ensure that the money is flowing in. And then for the last 6 months, I run my own company called Data Monet, which essentially provides non-executive and chief data officer services to different companies. But yeah, lots of common between what everybody has talked about, and I would love to hear everybody's views as well. Thanks.
Fantastic, thank you. Sarah, please.
Yeah, so thanks for having me here today. A bit of a different journey from my side. So I grew up in South Africa. When I finished school, I was kind of on my own, so I had to support myself. So I immediately had to go to work to put a roof over my head. So I worked all sorts of jobs. I, sold records, repaired video machines, did door-to-door sales, and then one day, when I was still very young, I came across an apprenticeship program. And in those days, it was called electronic composition. It was the early days of digitization. And it was a 3-year program, and it was terrible wages for 3 years. But it taught me an incredible amount about how to take things people had thought about traditionally and turn them into a digital image, or essentially a machine readable image, right? So at that time, we were doing a lot of work with desktop publishing, design, these types of things. And then I left South Africa. And what was really great about South Africa was, because it was South Africa, Germany used to do all their beta testing there. Because it's like, why not? Let's check it out in South Africa. Let's test it out. So we had access to all the latest technology. And when I left and went to the UK, my knowledge was kind of streets ahead of where the UK was at that time. So I ended up joining a traditional financial print company, and they were literally still using pieces of paper to print stuff, which was just shocking to me. So I digitized all of that, ended up then teaching myself how to code by reading help manuals online, which I'm sure is horrific to any computer science majors here. And trust me, nobody in IT wants to look at my code. But it worked, and it worked really well. And I didn't have a traditional approach to it. So to me, anything could work. It was all zeros and ones, right? So I created solutions across financial services, and then was eventually hired into the US, and have been with Credit Suisse now for a long time in many, many different roles. So I worked in the front office, kind of as the translation person between IT and business, right? So what is it you actually want, and then translating that into IT terms. I've done legal liaison, I've run supervisory analysts, production groups, been very knee deep in data science. And then about 7 years ago, really with the growth in big data, there was an opportunity at the bank where they were starting up a division that was going to focus on big data and solutions in that space. And it was an area I was really passionate about, but also saw the opportunity for the firm if we were able to centralize this as a domain space across Credit Suisse. So I moved from front office at that time to IT, and ended up running that group. So we now do big data, and we do data science. We're a center of excellence around data science, as well as some traditional stuff, BTL, data warehouse. Run the AI governance forum for Credit Suisse and do a lot of work with regulators. But I think when my data journey started is when I taught myself how to code. I started to become a data geek, right? And then from there, I was always using data in one way, shape, or form. And really understood, I would say, at a pretty early age, the power data brought to the table. And we're in super exciting times, right, when it comes to data. But I think it's an important message, just because you don't necessarily have to have followed an education path that at the time you thought was data to end up really leading in data. And it's just being about open to the opportunities and always questioning and, thinking outside the box, right? I mean, if you think about the landscape we started in, when we started our journeys, pretty much everybody on this call, and what data meant then and what data means now, I mean, it's been a complete disruption, right?
Absolutely. I think that's a really great message, and the different journeys are fascinating that everyone's taken as well. So last but not least, again, Thierry, please tell us about your journey into data.
Yeah, thanks, Caroline, and thank you for having me today. Yes, so I started not really original, but I started to study computer science, and then I joined a consulting firm, so just the same as Ross, so Accenture. Actually, at the time I joined, it was Anderson Consulting, and then it changed name. So I stayed there for 15 and a half years, where I finally let's say ruled the data management teams within Western Europe, and also the business analytics teams within the same region, right? And the good thing is that it has helped me to have different type of involvement in the different missions I was working on. So one was more focusing on the delivery, being involved in huge data transformation programs for international groups, and the other one was more on the strategy type of activities. And I really enjoyed the fact that then you can actually do both things and try to implement the strategy, the data strategy that you actually pushed. So after 15.5 years, I decided to quit and to join an insurance company. So in France called AXA. I'm sure you have guessed the accent where it was coming from. So AXA is a really decentralized organization. I was the CIO of the Data Innovation Lab, where the ambition was really great and massive ambition from the CEO to infuse and transform the group in the way they utilize data. And this is what we were doing. It was more on an IT job, as I was saying. And after that, after 3 years, I decided to join Engie. Engie is a utility company in France, operating in something like 70 countries in the world. I'm kind of in the same type of position, although it's a bit more in the business side of the things. So I really like to move from IT and business like strategy type of roles. So I'm the group chief analytics officer within Engie. And yes, my role is really to support the data transformation of the different entities, and starting by, first of all, to kind of build a new, let's say, the CDO map or activities, because we are also a really decentralized organization within Engie. And one of the things that we had to do is to have some kind of a network in different regions where we are operating. And the first thing was really to build this network, right? So the CDO network. So this is something that we've done, and also we are building now. We are helping them in building their data strategy. So basically, what they want to do, how they can use data more efficiently, how data can support their business objectives, what do they need to do it. What they want to prioritize as use cases, what is the value of each of those use cases, and what are the means for it, and how they can move forward. So we do that. It's really a heterogeneous, I would say, context and maturity, but this is basically what I'm doing here is really to support the data transformation of our entities.
Fantastic, thank you. Now I'm going to put you all on the spot a little bit and ask you to boast a little bit and tell me very briefly what has been your proudest achievement so far. And again, I'll start with you, Harvinder.
Let me come off mute. So I guess writing my book is probably my proudest achievement. So I've written a book on data ops. So those of you not familiar with data ops, is basically combining data science, data analytics, data management with sort of concepts from software development and product development. So particularly things like Agile, Lean, and DevOps. And the reason I wrote this book is because I kind of realized that a lot of the advice that had been out there for a very long time around, you need to improve data literacy within the organization, you need to produce actionable insight, have been the same kind of advice that people have been given for a very long time. But every time I kind of spoke to my peers, they always still had the same challenges, right? Which was, how do you make a difference within an organization as a data leader? So I felt that a lot of that sort of common sort of advice wasn't really making a difference. And I guess the other thing was that a lot of the way that people thought about using data was very old-fashioned. So it was coming from a world where people had sort of siloed data warehouses, and data had to be securely locked down and curated before anyone was allowed to use it. And it wasn't really fit for purpose in the new digital age with big data and machine learning. So it was about, okay, so what is a kind of a new paradigm for being able to use data and delivering an impact? And I kind of working in kind of a very digital centric organization, I was able to kind of like look at what other teams in the business were doing and how they were working and trying to apply some of those practices. And as I kind of developed my thinking, I realized that other people in the data space were also thinking on very similar lines. And that's when I came across data ops. And so I guess, yeah, I'm pretty proud of the fact that, you know, I was able to kind of share my experience of kind of a new way of working with data that allowed people to be agile, deliver outcomes rapidly, while still being able to ensure that, you know, we had, you know, data governance, data management, and data security and data privacy at the heart of it. The two things weren't necessarily in conflict, that you can actually have a balance of working fast and working safely at the same time.
Absolutely, that's brilliant. A good start to Proudest achievements, I think. Jean, what's been yours?
Thanks, Rosalind. Yes, I mean, with Collinson, I've been with them nearly 5 years now, actually. And throughout that time, I've effectively run two from scratch jobs, as I call them. So when I first joined Collinson on the insurance division, there was no data analytics, there was no data science, there was, you know, a very, very basic data warehouse structure. So therefore, I think the first step, of course, was to put together a data strategy and trying to understand what is that the business was going to need, and align, in a way, translate, as you know, what the business is telling you is not normally what they actually need. They just is scratching the surface, right? Trying to uncover what was actually the requirement, and then write a strategy that fit with that requirement, and then be able to execute that strategy, you know, getting the team. Pretty much I was the first hire for insurance, and so I was for Value Dynamics when we got that startup a couple years ago. So building that to having a full data science team, a data engineering team, UI UX developers, data analysts, and doing that build up from zero is really I think makes me proud, not only because you can see the transformation in the organization, you can see how it's changed the data literacy among all of the different functions. You know, they're actually starting to pick up terms of data. They want to have data. They are interested about it, which was completely not there when I started in any of the cases, right? And then on the flip side, it's also seeing how the people that I have recruited, the teams I have put together, have developed and learned and changed and evolved over the time, and how each of them, I guess, are within their, I guess, career paths that they had in mind, and that we're able to support those career paths going forward as well. So that's really good.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. And Ross.
Interesting. I was thinking about it, and I think the one thing I would say is about nurturing talent. So if I've got one skill, it's being able to, a bit like Jean has done, you know, build teams that can work together. And in the last job and this current one, you know, doing data science in an agile way, which is pretty interesting. And Harvinder's background as well, you know, it's taking data and creating products and services that add value, but having T-shaped people and very much creating products and services in an agile way. But I think also just giving back to the industry a bit. One of the things I was lucky enough to be voted on as chair now of the DMA, the Data and Marketing Association in the UK. And one of the things that we did at the very beginning of the work that we set out a number of years ago was how can we attract talent into the data industry? And we set up the Nurture Academy. And now we've had, the best part of 200 students come through 3-day inductions of what data is. And then it's nice to see them coming through their careers as we go through. And I think that's one of the things that, as I get towards the end of my career, it's nice to give back to some younger people and thinking about how can we start to build apprentices and apprenticeships going forward, and how can we bring people in, and how can we increase neurodiversity in the data industry is something that's of interest to me at the moment.
That's brilliant, thank you. I think from the outside looking into the industry, you would never think how integral people are, and up until relatively recently, I was one of those outside looking in, but in these conversations, it always comes back to the people, and it's really great to hear what you and Dean have said there as well. Samir, what's been your proudest achievement?
Yeah, I guess in the same lines with others, I classify my achievement into 3 buckets, Rosalind: people, profit, and pride. People is what Ross has been mentioning. It's nurturing people and mentoring people, and lots of people that I have nurtured, mentored, have gone on to become chief data officers, chief analytics officers, started their own companies, gives me immense sense of pride and fulfillment. The profit aspect is, again, quite dear to me, although it's hard numbers and nobody wants to talk about profits and stuff like that. But eventually, that is what we are here to do. And I think as I've grown in my career, I've utilized data as an enabler and utility, but more importantly, now I am giving suggestions on new product, new propositions, new market territories, innovation, disruption. So the sense of pride for me is turning the enabler and utility tag that we had in the data industry to a commercial entity. Data is fully and firmly a commercial entity, and I've managed to do that in quite a few organizations that I've worked with. The pride element is probably, as Harvinder mentioned. So I've also written a lot of books and articles, and one of them was published in the Oxford University Journal. So that was the pride element. And just wrapping it up emotionally, when your parents start to talk about your achievement, that is the emotional pride. That is what we are all about. So that gives me the most important. That is probably the most important achievement, I would say.
That's really nice to hear. I think people overlook that element, but the emotional element is always significant. Thank you. And Sarah.
Yeah, so much of what people have said resonates, right? I think people is a big part of it for me as well. I built a big data team that was at the time kind of focused on, it's the art of the possible, and turned that into something that was real, right? With a real structure, an enablement platform, actual use cases, delivering value to the business, tracking, and really enabling change, strategic change for the bank. And we've been able to see that happen, and we continue to do that now. And that's all down to the team, right? And building up an amazing team, amazing people, mentoring, coaching. We take in a lot of talent from universities and also the university outreach. We do a lot of work with academia. So we kicked off a relationship with ETH, which is one of the top universities in Switzerland, which has been great. But we do this around the globe. And then I think on a personal front, I would say 2 areas. So I was part of the AI Public-Private Forum, selected by Bank of England and FCA. That was great. It was kind of invite only, and I know there were a lot of applicants, so that was quite an honor for me. That's just wrapped up. And then being able to manage work-life balance. So I have a 15-year-old daughter, and it wasn't always easy, but I think she's turned out okay. I think I'm an okay mum. So that to me is a major achievement as well, because that's been, that's always hard as a working mum, being able to maintain that balance, especially when you're in a kind of senior leadership position.
Fantastic, thank you. And Thierry, what's your proudest achievement been?
Yes, thanks for asking the question. It's always hard to come at the end because I want to make it a bit original, but it's quite hard with you guys. Let's say talking about all this, mentioning all those points. So if I want to be to bring something new, I would say that part of my job is really to acculturate and to support and to convince people that data has value itself. and this is it might sound crazy, because I believe that every day in our everyday lives we use data and without knowing it. But unfortunately, you still need to convince. So if I think about my accomplishments, I would say that it goes under those lines. So basically, having being able to build a community of chief data officers, of 300 data scientists within the group, which is not a really data oriented. It's more an industrial group, So it's not like a data driven company. So having more than 300 data scientists within the group, or even more than 2,000 data friends, what I call data friends, people that are not aligned to data, but really interested in data as such, and trying to animate those communities as we move forward. It's subject for let's say accomplishment for me, or it isn't like an accomplishment for me. Yeah, so really convincing to me is part of our job as chief data officers, and bringing people together. So especially in the really decentralized organization. So that will be my I would say my satisfaction, I would say.
Fantastic, thank you all. Now for the last part of the discussion, I want to open this up. I'm going to start with Sarah, but please, everyone, I want to hear what you all think. So feel free to jump in and add on and discuss amongst yourselves as well. Sarah, what are the challenges that you can see on the horizon that you're preparing to work through?
Yeah, I think there's a big challenge at the moment, which is not net new, around upskilling in education, right? So data is becoming more democratized. The tooling to access data is becoming way more democratized. Things like AI and machine learning are becoming way more democratized. So people need to be able to understand what they're getting into, right? There's a very big ethical overlay to the use of data, right? You need to make sure that not only is the data you're using representative for your use case, right? It's actually good to use for your use case. But it's also not going to do any harm. You're not going to introduce any bias, right? That it's fair in the data that you're using. These are topics that are not data science topic specific in my mind. I had the privilege to speak to about 1,000 project managers at the PMI Institute in India, and we went through ethics, right? It was all about data and AI ethics, because these are topics that impact everybody who's going to touch data. You need to understand the right questions to ask, right? And getting the diversity of background and knowledge and skills to ask those questions is pretty key. So I think upskilling is a big one, understanding the domain space. And then agility, right? We need to be able to be agile with our development process so that we can scale and scale fast. Cloud enables you to do things quick. We don't release things every 2 weeks or every month now. We release them potentially every day, right? Credit Suisse isn't quite there yet, but that's a tech with cloud. So you need to be able to do that in a very secure fashion. I think we mentioned earlier, Havindra, in terms of your book, data ops, that's DevSecOps, right? So how do you do that securely, or data SecOps? You need to be able to operate data with security, kind of real time, built into the process, so the whole pipeline is fully automated. And that is a challenge. You've got to be able to sort that out, so that you're sourcing data strategically. It's the right data, it's representative, it's quality, and do that at scale fast. So I say those are some of the things that come top of mind for me.
I want to add a couple of things to that, and Sarah, absolutely agree with you. I think the couple of things I will add is really, as I touched on initially in the introduction, on the commercial entity bit. I think the biggest challenge for us as a data in the data community is getting data in the boardroom. And what do I mean by that is, again, getting that acceptance that data is far beyond the utility and the enabler that it is. Everybody understands data is important. Nobody understands how data can give them commercial and distinct competitive advantage, which is why the data community has lagged behind other communities in getting to the boardroom and getting that pathway. Yes, it's a discipline in its infancy, or probably one of the newer disciplines. But I think to fast track that discipline, we as business leaders have to have that conversation, a very commercial conversation, illustrate the importance of data in the boardroom as to how data at the very highest level can develop businesses, not just optimize marketing, develop new product, but genuinely develop businesses. And that is what I think is one of the strategic challenges that we as data leaders will face.
Absolutely. Thank you for that addition. Does anybody else, are you all feeling the challenges are very similar to what Samir and Sarah said? Or?
I think, Samir, I absolutely agree with you. When I was presenting to the board at Thames Water, one of the things that I did was I used Lego. And what I did was I went out and bought a Duplo car, a Classic, and then a Technic. And we actually, as a team, spent a couple of days building a £300 Porsche. And took the manuals into the board and showed them difficulty and said, okay, so when you say to us you want some data or a report, it's kind of like, you think it's this easy, but it's actually this complex. And by using that analogy, they suddenly went, oh, okay, so explain to me what you need to do. And then that's when we then started explaining that you need different teams and different roles. You need your data engineers, your data scientists, you need your product owners, you need your scrum masters, etc. And then we kind of split it around the people side of things. But actually data is a lot about process as well, and understanding what process we're trying to get to. And actually then we just explain to them, right, we need some beans. You need to tell us. You get one bean each, and you get to vote on what you want next. And that then became our priority list. And actually what we then started to do is we had one person in the business per team who then gathered requirements and prioritized what they wanted. And then they understood that actually something could take a year to build, or it could take a week, depending on the complexity of the thing that they wanted. So I think using some analogies like that, and we all use the one about an aeroplane and the destinations and how we're going to get there and how we're going to land, how we're going to refuel. I think the challenge that we face as a function is that we make it very complex, and we don't simplify this thing that just says, tell me what you want and describe what it's going to look like, and do that design thinking and help them do like they do with Disney and become Imagineers. Imagine what you want this to look like in a year's time, and then we'll work backwards rather than working forwards to get to that. And I think those kind of techniques of simplifying, but making it realistic and achievable, I think are important with boards.
Absolutely. I think I love that Lego anecdote as well, especially. I think that's great. Just quickly, because we are running out of time, but Jean, Harvinder and Thierry, I would really love to get your thoughts on upcoming challenges. So Jean, have you got anything to add?
Thanks, Rosalind. I think, yes, I second what everyone was saying. I think probably from my side had similar issues or challenges with regards data governance. I think because of the nature, I started from zero, right? We needed to do so many things that even though I'm banging every single meeting about data governance, it always becomes, second, third thing on the list on the priority, and you actually never get to it, realistically speaking. So I think that's probably one of the challenges I've seen across the industry with other peers talking about this in sessions like this as well, is that how do you carve out the time and put in place processes that are always taking consideration for data governance, ROPAs, I don't know, any other obligations we have in terms of data protection, but at the same time running that agile data science team, agile data engineer, data analysis team. Because effectively now, we have moved from having perhaps two to three scheduled releases a month to now we have 2 a week. So having the releases coming 2 a week, and at the same time trying to manage governance throughout all of them, all of the checks, peer reviews, etc., has become a challenge. So I think this is something perhaps some of you are facing here today, trying to tackle it, trying to put more automation into the process, and looking at the data ops aspect as well, having there, what can we establish in a way that is less resource intensive, that will help us achieve that governance throughout and keep the agile environment. So that is, I guess, one of the things that I've been dealing with recently.
Brilliant. And Harvinder?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what everyone else has said. I guess just to add, data privacy is kind of top of mind for me. There's this paradox where customers want you to use their data to help them, but equally they want their data to be as private as possible. And with the changes happening on the web, with the death of things like third-party cookies and tracking, it's about how do we earn the trust of users and show them that we are using their data in a very responsible way. Obviously, we're a price comparison website, so it's our mission to help our customers save money. And the more data they give us, the more we can help them do that. So that's a journey we're going to have to take ourselves and our customers on.
Fabulous, thank you. And Thierry?
Well, really quickly, I think that AI at scale is something that we are struggling with. We do AI, but not at a global scale. I think this is something that we need to work on, and maybe we do not do it everywhere. So there is untouched areas where we have data and we can actually certainly use data much more efficiently. The second thing would be data management, data governance, data quality. The same as Jean. I think it's clear that if you want to use AI or to use your data, it's rather be let's say in better quality, and you need to ensure that the quality of the data is good so that you can use it properly in all your algorithm. And then the third one would be leadership sponsor. I think that it's important. Data is not something that you can do behind the scene, right? There is things that will change your business model, will change your way you approach things, and it's a game changer. And you can't do it, let's say, in the cave. So you have to do it with the support of your leadership. And sometimes it's not very difficult. I'm quite lucky because at NG it's really one of the top party for the group. But I know that some entities are also struggling with this.
Fantastic, thank you. Sadly, that is all the time we've got time for. Thank you all so much for joining me. I've really loved hosting this and hearing all of your views and your stories. I feel like we could have probably gone on for another couple of hours, but unfortunately we're not able to. So for our viewers, remember you can still download your own copy of the Top 100 Innovators in Data and Analytics 2022 report. Many of our Top 100 members will also be appearing across the year at a number of our online and in-person events. So be sure to visit our global events calendar so that you can join them. To the panel and to our viewers, stay safe and well, and goodbye. Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Thank you. Lovely.
Thank you. Bye-bye.